So, who doesn't enjoy an ice cold beer? Ice cold beer has been enjoyed ever since historic times, but very few people have little, if any, idea on how to make it. For almost a year now, I've been a bartender at a local brewery, and I've spent some time researching the brewing process. So today, I'm going to explain a simplified version of how beer is made.
Yeah.
To start off, you're going to malt your grains. This involves leaving your grains in a kiln to dry and possibly roast, depending on the style of beer. Traditionally, these grains consist of barley, wheat, oats, or rye. The leftover grains are going to be called a gerstbill. Then, combining the gerstbill with water in the kiln and heating the kiln to somewhere between 100 and 170 degrees, there's going to be a 2-hour-long process called mashing, which is going to convert starches into sugars that are going to later become alcohol inside the beer. This resulting product is called a mash. So next comes infusion or decoction mashing. The only difference here is going to be in infusion, you're going to continue mashing everything together, whereas in decoction mashing, you're going to separate some out, you're going to heat it at a different temperature, and then you're going to add it back in later, depending on the style of beer. You do different processes. And at the end of this process, you're going to have what is called a wort. So the next process is called lautering, where you're going to remove the spent grain from the wort as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Basically, just you want little to no liquid left over in those spent grains. So next is boiling, which is exactly what it sounds like, for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. You're going to boil the wort until it's a more condensed liquid. Then comes hopping and whirlpooling, which is simply adding in hops and slowly stirring that wort, removing any solid hops back out from the wort. This is going to add aroma, bitterness, and taste to the wort. The wort is then going to be transferred into a fermentation tank. Oh, I'm sorry. There's my picture of the hops being added in. But the wort is transferred into the fermentation tank. And this is where you're gonna add. This is where you're gonna add yeast into your cooled wort. At this point, you're just gonna wait. Depending on the beer, this could take months, whatever. But the yeast is gonna sit in there in the fermentation tank and convert all those sugars in the wort into alcohol, while being kept around 60 to 68 degrees. It does have to be kept at a room temp, or the yeast isn't gonna work. Next comes conditioning, which is a continued fermenting process, but in cold storage. This is going to allow any byproducts to diminish within the beer. This can take up to 6 weeks, but it gives the beer a chance to cool down and also remove any byproducts. Finally is packaging and carbonation, where the beer is going to be canned, kegged, or bottled, and then flooded with CO2 to carbonate. And at this point, the beer's ready to drink. So, this was a simplified version of the beer making process, obviously. Beer has been consumed and made since 6000 BCE and is enjoyed today by billions around the world, especially college students.
Oh my God! Thank you, boys.